rather not call it international conspiracy. I rather call it politics of international economic relations. Now, what's the difference? Now, when you talk about politics of international economic relations, you're talking about countries protecting their turf.
Business, yeah.
Now, remembering that it was the same steel that led to the subprime mortgage. It was money that China raised from steel and infrastructure that they used in practically destroying or collapsing the economy of Europe. To the extent that at one time, they started even bidding to buy the Pentagon. Remember? To the extent that at one time, 80% of the cars being driven in America and Europe were all coming, from Asia. The Toyotas, which they now didn't want to call a Toyota and started calling it a Lexus. Okay, the Avalons. These are all, cars that they just, like you said,
just like
dress. Now, it's also important for me to say that Ajokuta was built in Nigeria. Every component of Ajokuta was actually, built in Nigeria in what they call their engineering workshop or their base workshop. So Nigerians were fully involved in the establishment of Ajokuta. And in that base workshop or engineering workshop, it is still there, or erection base rather. That's what it's called. Now that erection base was where every component of Ajokuta, was built. But each time people talk about Ajokuta and are focusing on steel, they tend to miss it. Because Ajokuta, like the minister said, has 44 independent, as it were, industries. In fact, inside Ajokuta, you have 4 cement industries that can produce cement. You have a lime industry, 100% completed, that can produce hydrated lime. You have a workshop there that can retrofit every and any transformer in Nigeria today. Retrofit from start to finish. So, but if you're going to be looking at steel as a basis of development and then being able to be graded, okay, because international development is actually graded against your steel consumption. Okay, the percentage of steel you consume. And if you look at our consumption today, we're talking about infrastructure, infrastructure expenditure takes over 85% of our national budget. We're talking about steel and allied products. Let's start with the table in front of us here. You're seeing a glass table, but it's really a glass table. Would this table be standing here without the steel sections? Look at the chairs you're sitting on. You might be surprised that the base could also have some kind of steel structure. Look at this building that we are. You look around and you see bricks. But the foundation is steel.
And the pillars. The
pillars are steel. So when they talk about steel being everything, but in trying to deal with this international conspiracy or politics, which is a direct question you asked me, it's very simple. We need to build these synergies, that I had mentioned. Yes, it was a good thing to have separated, the 2 ministries. But even in the ministry itself now, you have 4 or 5 major agencies. All right? Now, the first agency and the second agency, I think 3 of them are under the control of the senior minister. Then the other 2 are under the supervision of the junior minister or the minister of state. Okay? Now, by law, both of them are supposed to, be on equal, standing. And this is where, building that synergy. The first synergy will be to build a block where, like, when me and you were growing up, okay, our parents, did it. If you go to your mom, there was no phones then. Your mom will tell anybody where your father was. Okay, so if you had the ministry, first and foremost, closing gaps. There's even another critical agency that is completely out of the ministry I didn't mention. And each time I come here, I try to bring them in. The Raw Materials Research Development Council has more statistics on mineral resources in Nigeria than the 2 ministries were talked about, or maybe as much. Okay, so if you want us to, control this international conspiracy, you're also now having the issues of the subnationals who are now every day, issuing executive orders, taking over their mineral resources, So you must be able to build that back end. And in building that back end, you must build it against front ends. Let me go to the front end now, Claire. Look at the rail line that we're building. Imagine if Ajokuta was given a contract to supply 30% of the rail tracks on the coastal range, the money that the minister is talking about will be peanuts. Now, against that contract, they can actually now go to any bank and say, because we've been given this contract, if Ajokuta as an agency was given the contract to supply maybe 10 million electric poles, if Ajokuta was given, the contract, to make 10 million gas, these gas cylinders. I'm just giving you very practical things that can happen. Then you would not need, but you need to have a business model, which is why it's good that you have an investment banker as a minister who understands transactions. And then you have a president who also now, understands it better to say, I want the business out of this place. But in making that business out of the place, you will need to go to that 2% everybody is talking about. The 2% that is left uncompleted. Okay? Like I said, I was involved in the technical, review of Ajokuta at one time, some time ago. That 2% has more to do with the operational cost of Ajokuta. How are you running your raw materials? And you need, let me also say this, for public information. The furnace in Ajokuta requires 180 days to start. 180 days, please mark my words. And it must run for 5 years non-stop. And then, if you're going to be producing 1.5 million metric tons of liquid steel, you'll be needing 7.5 million metric tons of raw materials on an annual basis, non-stop for 5 years. So that would be 7.5. So you're talking about 30 million or something like that. Metric tons that must be on ground before you start that plant. Those are all part of those 2%. And then you're talking about the logistics of moving your materials. There was a lot of problems in dredging the Niger. Okay, at one time, just like you had with the coastal rail line now, a lot of oil pipelines, so they couldn't dredge it. Now, they now started deciding to now build the rail track. So these are all, the issues that can help you.
The